There's a mystical tie-in here. When Christ calls on his Father to say, Father, Father, why hast thou forgiven me? That is normally translated in a Orthodox Christian setting, but in fact it could also be interpreted as the body crying to the soul which is leaving, Father, Father, why hast thou leaving me? Father, Father, meaning the body, the lower senses calling to the soul, don't leave me. If you don't animate me, my life becomes insipid. My worldly life becomes darkness. Don't go, O soul. And this then takes you into the mystical traditions, a mystical reading of what Calvary represents, and the tearing of the curtain, the tearing of the veil, and the departing of the soul from man. This is another more esoteric reading of Calvary. But the soma can be seen as a physical drink, a physical sort of imbuement, but I tend to look at it as a far greater thing than that. It is what occurs when the opposites, like the Shiva and Shakti, which is just nothing, it's just lingo for the masculine and feminine. When I use these terms, it doesn't mean I'm a worshipper of Shiva or Shakti. I'm talking in abstract, archetypical, like Joseph Campbell used to do. I'm speaking in archetypal terms, that when you have made that chemical wedding, and you return to the 0 degrees latitude and 0 degrees longitude of consciousness, to the still point. It is at that point where all of your existence, like William Blake showed in his paintings, and like so many have shown in their poems, Rumi and Shamsai Tabriz and the great Sufi poets, and many others have shown in their ecstatic poetry. It is at that moment that the world becomes yours. The Rig Veda is full of it, about how a man is united with the universe. It's a very powerful and high concept. It's nothing to do with just a backdoors to God and psychedelics and drugs and all of that malarkey. That's what it became. Yeah, well, didn't the great religions of the Arya become the priestarchies that we know today? The misogynist, phallocratic bunkum that's taught today? Yeah, so everything degenerates as part of the loss of the great Aryan teachings.
I have one more question from the chat box. It's been absolutely thrilling to speak with you. It's I'm on the edge of my seat here, just talking to you. It's a great honour to hear your views, and I'm glad that we have some sort of vehicles available to us to get this information out to people. Stephen, in the chat box, mentions there are stories of, I know these are big subjects, and we've just got 10 minutes left here, 5 minutes left of time, but Stephen mentions there are stories of one of Ashkenaten's daughters being buried in Ireland. It seems to have been garbled with another similar story of Scotta or Scotia.
Well, it's not garbled. It's a very straightforward situation. The Annals of Ireland, which are historical records, clearly state that the name of Ireland was Scotia, and so was Scotland when the Irish went over there, and that either Meritaten, Scotta herself, is buried in County Kerry. And the only problem arises is because of the chronology. Since the chronology is entirely messed up, it does make it problematic as to whether it's Scotta herself or a descendant that is buried in that grave. Ultimately, it's unimportant, because we know that even if Meritaten had died long before she got to Ireland, let's say, just go to the extent of saying that Meritaten herself could not have been alive when she got to Ireland, it doesn't matter, because we know that the Egyptians mummified their bodies. They maybe even carried her ashes and put her there. So, okay, the word burial, it doesn't necessarily mean a body of a woman who flopped dead in Ireland and was, buried. This is nonsense. The fact is they could have buried her there. It could have been a mausoleum. It could have been a monument. That's irrelevant. The point is, it is known that the Egyptian priestess, and she's not the only one, was taken there. Whether it was her ashes, her corpse, whether it was her mummy, whether it was her, or whether it was a descendant, is really largely, splitting hairs, is very, very insignificant in my reading of it.
Well, my last question to you, Mr. Michael Tsarion, our guest this evening, is on. Sorry to skip over the subjects here, but we're pretty much out of time. So I want to thank everybody in the chat box and on TNS Radio and freemanireland.ning.com. But as a musician myself, I noticed in one of your earlier interviews that you made the point that when you're doing something you love, you will be assisted, and that forces do come to your aid. I write instrumental, orchestral sounding music, and I write songs to inspire and educate people about standing up against the New World Order. And always positive lyrics, and I'm absolutely certain that this type of creative intention is crucial for all people to experience. Just building a chair, like you say, or a beautiful garden is the same. In ancient Greek myths, and I know that you find many truths in legends that corroborate your own worldview of why humanity is the way it is, if you know how to read them right. In ancient Greek mythology, they speak of the muse, authors often say that it's almost seems the book is writing itself, that the characters are writing it. Is this an ancient science that's been suppressed by the bloodlines so people can't make the most of their inner voice, the knowledge of how to access and make the most of this phenomenon?
Well, absolutely. Music is nothing more than the call of the self. It's that reverse road. Remember, it's that U-turn when people try to return back to a rapport with what is broadly called the unconscious, and more specifically called the whole being, the self. Music is that language of that return. Good music, that is, of course. I mean, one of the ancient, the very word serenade, when we serenade somebody, serenade is the Gaelic for the names of the bards. It actually means a druid. And senior, like you have senor in the Latin countries, in Spain you have senor, and you have senior. It means old man. It means old bard, and it even refers to the man who played the harp. Then you have the myths of Orpheus, awakening the dead with a sound. You have the whole cult of Persephone, being brought out of the underworld. You have in the Dagda, in the Irish myth, the Dagda goes to retrieve his harp. The harp is living. It jumps off the wall into his arms as soon as he goes into the halls of the evil ones to call it back. The idea of music, whether it's the music of the spheres taught by Pythagoras and all of these other people, whether it's the harmonics that are in the sacred buildings of the world, or whether it's a person just, sitting on their guitar. The good music is not about survival. It's about the spiritual reconnection. It's the song that brings you back to the original core. That's not in words. Words are far too superficial, too collectivized, too loaded with meaning, and far too late in history even to deal with that ancestral wisdom. I mean, it's literally, it's Coleridge's Kubla Khan. The river that's running there is the sound. It's the sacred letters. It's that which lies behind number, behind words, behind vibration. Is the deeper chord. Like the Moody Blues talk about the search for the lost chord. That lost chord is vibrating. It is real. And when and it's in magical tradition, it's well known that when you strike a chord or play a chord on a piano, all the other notes around it will vibrate and will raise those notes to that same frequency and pitch. So there's incredible magic in that fact.
Absolutely. I remember the first time I played on a grand piano, when you play a chord in an empty hall, and it rebounds back, and there is a magic in each chord.
The Druids had different music. You see, they professed to have different music for different moods, and they could even incur those moods by playing. Well, this is exactly what you find in the way that they tuned their harps and so forth and so on. The idea to be the O'Carolins of the world, the bards of the world, one of their jobs is to express the entire emotion or saga or mythos of an entire people in one song. It's not individual, and there's an individual aspect to it, but it's to play what is going on underneath the mythos.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, Mr. Michael Tsarion, and it's been an honor and fascinating. I hope to speak to you again on TNS Radio. I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and soft paths to you, as the American Indians would say, and good luck on your travels and your research, and have a good day tomorrow now.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, Vince and Patrick. Actually, I must say this is one of my most favorite interviews. The questions were absolutely excellent. I've really enjoyed it, and it's so good to have intelligent questions. It's really, really thrilled about that. So thank you very, very much.
Well, it was my pleasure. We'll get the MP3 to you, and you can have your own copy of that for yourself, and we'll be putting it up on the website as a podcast as well, and I'll make a little YouTube video. And well, take care. You're a great man, and I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks again.
I'd be delighted to do it again. Thank you.
Good luck now. You are tuned to the Free Truth Show on TNS Radio. We have been joined by Michael Tsarion, author and researcher, and it's been my great pleasure to take questions from people in the chat. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to everyone's question, but he will be back, and we'll speak to him again. And Vincent has an announcement to tell you all about. So I'm just going to hand over, and I'm going to say good night now. I'm your host, Patrick Lynch, from the Free Truth Show. Good night.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you very much to you too, Michael. Wonderful, wonderful interview tonight, folks.